Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about the curious case of Benjamin Button. Now, before I go into summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. Now, the curious case of Benjamin Button, very interesting work here. We have the Buttons, Mr. and Mrs. Buttons. We're looking at 1860 here, and they have this child, but this child is 5'8", about 70 years old, very old, and the mother dies during childbirth, and the father, he wants to take care of this kid, and well, it's not really a kid; it's a grown man. I mean, 5'8" that's supposed to be a baby but not, but a grown man that wants to smoke. Um, how do you deal with this? But within the short story, what ultimately happens is the father, he's going to treat his son like a normal kid. So he gives his son toy animals, rattles, all these types of things. But instead of, playing with those types of things, Benjamin just wants to smoke because he's an old man. He's not a child. But ultimately, he keeps growing younger. So the wrinkles start to grow away. He starts to get older and older. He has to eventually he goes to school. But it's very strange. This is a grown man. Nobody believes that he's the age that he is. As time goes by, when he's getting closer to his 20s, he starts to look like his father. It comes to the point where him and his father, they look to be the exact same age. They look like brothers instead of, son and father. Ultimately, Benjamin starts to work for his father in his hardware store. Benjamin does very well. He ends up owning the first automobile in Baltimore. He gets married to a woman by the name of Hildegard Moncrief, and they have a son by the name of Roscoe. And Benjamin just keeps getting younger and younger. At first, the society that they lived in Baltimore, they were like, Hildegard was marrying a man that's much older than her. But as Benjamin keeps getting younger and younger, they're like, oh, this is an old lady married to a young man. They do have a son together again by the name of Roscoe. Roscoe keeps getting older and older, and Benjamin keeps getting younger. Hildegard, Benjamin's wife, she gets kind of really upset because her husband, who she thought was an older man, just keeps getting to be younger and younger, and he's becoming less attracted to her. She's getting older. She thought she married an old man, or an older man, but this older man keeps getting younger. She's getting older. His attraction to her starts, going away, and it's getting backwards. It comes to the point where Benjamin gives over the business to his son Roscoe, who's getting older than his own father. And Benjamin goes to college. He doesn't go to Yale. He tried to go to Yale when he was unknown. Well, when he looked like an old man, but they rejected him. They're like, you look more like your father than you, and they were like, no. So he ends up, going to Harvard when he's, normal college age, and he leaves his company to his son. He joins the football team. He does very well. He's living that young life. He's energetic about life. Ultimately, he becomes too small for the football team, and by his freshman year, he can't even make the team anymore. His son keeps growing up and it becomes a prominent person within Baltimore society to the point where he has to ask his own father. Roscoe has to ask Benjamin to start calling him uncle. Roscoe has a child of his own, and when Benjamin is 10 and Roscoe's son is 5, the age difference is just, this is your grandfather. That's the same age as a sibling would be. Ultimately, Roscoe's son and Benjamin, they become playmates, and then Roscoe's son keeps getting older, and Benjamin just keeps fading into the background to the point where he becomes a toddler, and a baby, and then he ultimately fades away. the story pretty much ends with Benjamin fading away. It's a very interesting story in terms of deeper meaning and analysis here. It's a very interesting story of how Benjamin came into this world as a man about 70, and then he dies as an infant. Getting married, how he met his wife, how at first everybody in society was judging him for, he's an older man, she's a younger woman, and then when she's an older woman and he's a younger man, so they judge both sides of that. The dynamic between Roscoe and Benjamin, that's father son figure when your son has to like literally ask you to call him uncle, and then the dynamic between Roscoe's son and Benjamin. So when you go against the normal way of society, it does get confusing. It does get a lot, and the family had to deal with it. The father, the wife, the son, the grandson, everybody had to deal with it, to the point where sometimes you had to avoid or push Benjamin away, and then sometimes you just had to find a way to cope with him because he's still a human being and he's still a part of your family. Um, so the curious case of Benjamin Button, it's strange. It's strange the way in which they had to deal with this. It's strange how they came to the result of this. By the end, though, it does leave you with a lot of answers, a lot of things to ask, not answers, but more questions than answers, and ultimately. It says a lot about the characters and society in general, because a lot of the choices that Benjamin makes, a lot of the choices that his father makes and his wife and his son, it's just to survive within society. It's curious because nobody would understand it. Nobody can understand it. If a man would be born grown up, it's not. It's how do you fathom that? How do you understand it? How do you comprehend it? But somehow Benjamin still figured out a way to make a life for himself. But again, whenever these short stories like this, like Curious Cases, the Curious Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, that's another one. These curious cases are always interesting, and how they get solved and how people have to cope with them. It does come to a resolution by the end of it, but it does make you think a lot about relationships. Now, in the movie, there is a movie of the same name, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Um, in the movie, they made the father look very bad, like the father just abandoned the weird, old, shriveled up adult kid. But in the short story, no, the father embraced his son. He took his son in and he raised his son, and the family just stayed the family. In the movie, Benjamin Button was just ditched by his father. It was very sad. So the movie and the short story are very different. The short story shows you a man who had to live a different way. The film showed you a man who had to, who was all alone in the world and had to figure out himself with this weird predicament that he's in. So that's all I have to say about this work. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video.